Hey guys, Sean T. Phillips here with my brand new DVD Blu-ray Tuesday Sean Bear today. Taking a go out today, see what things came out, see what things are on sale. I know today though some of the big releases today are Love, Simon, and I know Target has an exclusive edition of that one. Tomb Raider releases today, as well as Strangers Prey at Night. I know there's a couple other things as well. Also at the end of this video is going to be a bunch of new DVD and Blu-ray reviews for some things that are to review and talk about for you guys, so definitely stay tuned for those at the end of this video. But anyway though guys, let's get going and see what we can find today. Into Target we go. And hopefully all this stuff is put out today as well, because last week, I went and I had to go to another Target because nothing was out. But I know in Target too, there's supposed to be a whole bunch of sales for the next couple days, like some 4K things, I think for $13, and some newer movies for $10. So definitely interested in seeing, what ones are on sale today. And like I said, they have in here an exclusive, only a Target edition here of Love, Simon. This has in here, it's the same price as the standard Blu-ray, and it has exclusive digital extras on here, and it has a composition book that has 10 new emails between, the main character and the guy that he was talking to. I really like this movie a lot. It's definitely one that I'm going to get down the line. There was this kid who came out as gay to his friends at school, and then he started talking to this other kid who said that he was gay, through emails, and it was kind of like the whole movie you're wondering who is the person he's talking to, because they do it anonymous, talking back and forth. But what's funny is how it's a composition book, because it was all done through emails, all the talking and everything. But that really was, though, a really good movie, though. They have the 4K as well for $24.99. Like I mentioned as well, Strangers Prey at Night released today, and that one's $22.99 for that. I talked about that one last week, but that's a really, really good old school slasher with real 80s synth kind of music. Very different than the original film, which was a real straightforward horror film, suspense film. This one is just a total old school slasher. And they also have a double feature one, but it's only for the DVD for $22.99. Also, I Can Only Imagine, that one released. I'm going to be talking about that one at the end of this video, as well as the new Tomb Raider film. And I believe they had a 4K as well. I think I saw that in the front to see how much that one was. Other than that, though, I think this might have come out today, the Stephen King movies and TV collection here, which has The Stand, Langoliers, Golden Years. I think Golden Years might have been one of the few ones I never saw. Graveyard Shift, Silver Bullet. So that's a pretty cool one. I'm hoping down the line sometime they actually release the Langoliers on Blu-ray. That was one of those movies. I always loved that movie, but the effects were really bad, the actual effects of the Langoliers and everything. That was the only downfall to that movie. But other than that, though, I think that's all of the major things. And I know I said some things were on sale. I think, I'm not seeing the prices, though, because I was pretty sure, The Greatest Showman, that was one of the ones that was $13, and a couple other new release ones were. But I'm not 100% certain which all the ones were today, though. Yeah, and they had the 4K of Tomb Raider in the front, and that one was $30. One of the other ones I forgot to show on there that came out today was Sherlock Gnomes, the sequel, to Romeo and Juliet. That was today as well. Into Walmart we go. Yeah, and in here today, though, like I said, Tomb Raider was one of the big releases, and the 4K here is $29.96 for that one. And I really, really did like this one a lot. I love the original movies as well, the original ones with Angelina Jolie. But I thought this one was actually a really pretty cool origin film, and hopefully they do more. But like I said, I'm going to talk about this at the end of this video. And they have Love, Simon here, and it seems like Target's the only place that has the exclusive edition of that one, and it's $24.96 for the 4K. And as well as I Can Only Imagine today, which, like I said, I'll be talking about that one the end of this video. Sherlock Gnomes, this is the one I forgot to show in Target, that released today. And then other than that here, though, the only other things today was Sea Change, and I'm going to be talking about this one at the end of this video, as well as Ordinary Man, that released today, starring Ben Kingsley. And they have The Strangers here as well for $19.96 for that, for the Blu-ray. And they have the double pack as well, but the double pack, like I said, only has the DVD version. And I saw someone posting a picture online too of new slipcover versions that I think released for some Paramount titles, one for Addams Family, the original Addams Family film, and I think a couple other ones. Hopefully at some point, though, they release the Addams Family Values on Blu-ray as well, because that one's never come out. And over here, though, last week when I showed this, I know there were some empty spots. I can't tell, though, what wasn't out last week when I was looking. I'm not seeing anything really too different that I wasn't noticing last week. I got that Delirium one last week. But today, too, they released on TV, this one here, which actually my dad wanted me to get this because like he watched the first 2 seasons of this, but the third season they put all of them on demand except for the first episode, so he wasn't able to watch it at all. So I'm definitely going to pick this one up. And this one actually, I watched some of the first season, it was pretty cool. Each season though is its own story, so it's not one of those ones where you have to have seen all the other ones to get it. But I'm definitely going to get this one today though, and that one's 1996. And I think this might have been this week, this Ancient Aliens, the 10th anniversary one, which I talked about a week or so back. It's the first 10 seasons of the show together in one set, so that's a pretty cool set there. And I don't know if this was last week or this week, Orange is the New Black, the complete 5th season here. Yeah, so I ended up getting that Channel 0 one in here. This one's only released on DVD. Sometimes down the line, though, with TV, they do, like, Universal does, like, burn on demand Blu-ray releases. Like, they did that for the Jessica Biel show, The Sinner. But I don't know if they're going to do that for this one, though. And this past weekend, I saw a couple different films. The first one I saw was Hotel Artemis, which stars Jodie Foster. And it's like a futuristic film where Jodie Foster's character runs this hospital, which is for criminals. So then you have to have like a membership to go to this place. You have to pay. And it's like if you get injured, like, or shot, robbing a bank or doing any type of criminal activity, and you need to go to a hospital and you need to go like undercover and not be arrested for going to the hospital, you basically go to this place. And she plays like the head doctor of it, who like runs and keeps everything going. Batista is there as the nurse, and he was really, really good as the nurse in this. It's essentially, though, about these 2 guys who, are robbing this bank, and they end up having to go there and kind of hide out. But then there's like, other people involved as well, and then there's other people who are in this hospital, and there's like 3 different rooms, and I don't know, I thought it was actually pretty cool. Sophie Botella, who was, in the new Mummy film and Atomic Blonde, she's in the movie as well, has some really cool stuff in the movie. I don't know, I really liked it. I always loved Jodie Foster, and this is her first movie since I think like 2013 that she acted in. I just thought it was a really weird, futuristic movie with a really, really cool setting. The other one I saw was Hereditary, and that one, has gotten amazing reviews. People say that it's super creepy. It stars Toni Collette, and it's basically about her mother dies in the beginning of the film, and then it's kind of like, she finds out some weird stuff about her mother, and, when she gets this book and she sees like some weird pictures and stuff, and the mother says, it's all going to make sense to you in the future, you're all going to know what everything means. And I don't want to say too much about what goes on, but it's just a very, very creepy movie with a really dreadful, gloomy vibe to the whole movie. It's not one of those movies, some people said like it's like one of those like extremely scary ones, like it's not like a jump scare kind of movie. It's just one of those movies with like this insane amount of dread and like sadness and just creepiness. And there was some like scare kind of stuff like but nothing like jump scare wise. I feel like the scariest thing I've seen in years still was It Follows, with the one guy coming through the door. And if you guys know what I'm talking about, for some reason that was one of the only things I've seen in years where like all of a sudden I felt like my heart stopped. It was like that like really, really got to me terrible. But it really was, Hereditary really was a great, creepy vibe film, all about like kind of figuring out what everything means. And like Gabriel O'Brien is in the film, and I've always been a fan of him ever since the movie I loved as a kid called Shipwrecked, and he plays the father. And there's stuff, Alex Wolff is the son. And I don't know, I really love the movie. Really cool film, very creepy. And the other one I saw was Ocean's 8, which is sort of the spin-off film. And Sandra Bullock is basically George Clooney's sister. And, she's just got out of prison. And the second she gets out of prison after being there for 5 years, she's trying to plan this huge heist of stealing this necklace. And it's like this necklace is worth like $150 million. And it's kind of her and Cate Blanchett putting together this team, trying to figure out how they're going to steal this from this Met Opera kind of like the Met museum event, and trying to put together the whole team and how they're going to steal this. I thought it was a fun movie. I was like, it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be, because like from the original trailers, I didn't know for sure how it was going to be. And it was one of those ones too where, if certain movies, they play trailers like crazy. And I feel like it was one of those movies where every single film I ever saw, they had the trailer for it. And I was kind of worried too that they were going to kind of give everything away and you were going to see everything. And honestly, there was still stuff that you didn't see, and you really didn't know too much about everything. And I don't know, I actually thought it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And I remember really liking Ocean's 11. I don't remember the sequels too much. I know there was 2 other sequels to it. But anyway, though, guys, if you guys saw any of those movies, let me in the comments. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of them, or what films you guys got to see this past weekend. Into Best Buy we go. And I think these might be new prices on these ones, like Shape of Water and Murder on the Orient Express and 3 Billboards for $16.96 for the 4K. That's a pretty good price for those ones, for the 4K ones. Other than that, though, they have Tomb Raider, and that one seems to be pretty much the same price everywhere. The 4K is, $30 for that one. And there doesn't seem to be any exclusives, like I said, for that one that released today. Other than that, though, I'm pretty sure in the front of the store they had Strangers Pray at Night, and I know I saw Love, Simon in the front. And they have this one that I showed last week, that if you guys are interested in this one, Walmart has the exclusive Blu-ray release of this one. And I think this just came out, this The Royal Wedding. Yeah, they put that onto DVD. I'm pretty sure, like I said, that one had just released. Other than that, though, nothing really too different in here today. Not too many other like smaller releases or anything like that. In the front, though, they had a steelbook of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one. But I think too, I'm not 100% certain, but I think these were released today. And for some reason I thought these were next week, but these might have been this week. The Purge films on 4K, and they're $17.99 for those, which is not a bad price for these ones. Like I said, I'm pretty sure these ones released today. But other than that, though, nothing else really too different that I've noticed in here today. So anyway, though, guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray Tuesday shopping video today. Like I always say, if you guys enjoy these shopping videos, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Also, let me know in the comments below what you guys picked up, if you guys picked up anything today. And also, now stay tuned for a bunch of new DVD and Blu-ray reviews. And the first one I got here is from Shot Factory Screen Factory line. It's a movie here called Night of the Lepus, which stars Janet Leigh and Rory Calhoun, who I always think of him from Motel Hell, which Screen Factory released as well. He was in lots of westerns and things like that, but I don't know, I always loved Motel Hell. It's one of those movies I've watched so many times. Such a cool film. But this movie is made around the time when they were making a lot of those like kind of killer animals kind of films, like when animals attack. There was like movies about like killer bees, like Savage Bees, ants, all kinds of things around that time in the 70s, a lot of those type of films. And this one is basically about something ends up happening, and to try and control the rabbit population, there's kind of like areas where this stuff was actually happening. They had some real footage of this, where like there was areas of there's like thousands of rabbits, and they were all kind of like eating up the fields and like going crazy and everything, and they're having all these babies, and they're basically, though, in this one community, though, they were trying to figure out how they're going to control this population, and these scientists were kind of experimenting on things, and one of the experimented things ends up getting loose, and then it ends up, breeding with the other rabbits, and then like turning them into these gigantic rabbits. So it's basically about these like, mutated huge rabbits like attacking. So it's a real like over the top kind of crazy, like I said, animal attack kind of movie. Just a really, really fun movie. Like I said, they did a lot of kind of things of a similar kind of vibe, but this one took it to a crazier level, because some of the other ones were just like the animals as they were, but these ones are like the mutated, bigger versions of the rabbits. Just a really, really fun movie here. It has on here, though, a brand new 2K scan of the film. It has 2 comedy tracks on here, a still gallery, and the theatrical trailer on this one. The next one here is from Lionsgate. This is a movie that aired on Lifetime. It's a movie here called Sea Change. This is basically about this girl whose father just died, and she ends up having to go to live with the mother, and she actually hadn't seen the mother since she was like a little kid. Like she's actually pretty much right when she was born. She never really even knew this mother. But since the father died and she was 17, she has to stay with her guardian, who's the mother. So she goes to this small island. It's kind of like coastal community island, and she goes there. And of course, when she gets there, she's like meeting the mother pretty much for the first time ever, because the father never even talked about the mother. The girl, she never really was interested in seeing the mother either. So there's kind of very little interest. So she has to kind of go there and see this mother. And it's essentially, though, it's about her on this island, and she meets this guy when she's like on the boat over. So she sort of starts to like him, and it's sort of essentially though about her kind of figuring out though exactly why the father didn't want her to know about the mother. And this girl too is like, when she's out there by the ocean stuff, she's like hearing weird things, she's hearing kind of sounds and stuff. And there's also kind of like these, you can see right in the beginning of the movie too, you see these kind of creatures like attack someone in the ocean, and it's like, it's basically about like this connection that she could have to these. And like maybe the reason why the father didn't want her there was, you know, on this island, was there's more to it. It's essentially about her trying to figure out exactly from her past exactly what's going on and everything. It's actually a pretty interesting film here. I think too, from what I was reading, it might go on, because it was based on a novel, it might go on to be more films. I don't know for sure though, but it was, like I said, a pretty interesting movie here. The next one here, this is like a comedy kind of, sort of, not a modern Western, this is set, I think in the 50s this is set, but it's kind of like a Western themed kind of film, but like with comedy elements to it. It's a movie here called The Escape of Prisoner 614, and this stars Martin Starr, Ron Perlman is in this movie. Martin Starr, you know, I always think of from Freaks and Geeks, and he's on Silicon Valley, but lots of different stuff. This is essentially though about these two cops, and they end up basically in this small town. They're never really arresting anybody. They're never really having much success with anything. They're just kind of like these bumbling cops. And Ron Perlman's character, you know, Ron Perlman, who's the sheriff, he basically says to them, you know, you haven't had any arrest, you're not making us look good, so he ends up letting them go. And right when they, you know, he ends up leaving because he's like, I have to deal with something else, they get this call that there's this prisoner who's escaped. So they come up with the idea, both these guys who were just kicked off the force for having no arrest. They think, oh, if we can go out and find this prisoner, track him down, then maybe we can get our jobs back. So it's essentially about them, you know, going out into the middle of the woods trying to find this guy on this kind of mission to try and track him down. And these guys really don't know too much about what they're doing. Like I said, they've never had much luck with anything. And there's some funny stuff too, like right when they get fired as cops, they always would go to this diner and get free food. They'd say, oh no, it's because you're cops, it's free. And the second they stop being cops, they have to pay and stuff. I don't know. This is actually kind of a fun movie. I always really like Ron Perlman. Martin Starr did a really good job in this one as well. Like I said, it's kind of got like a Western feel to it, but it's set like in, I think it was like the 50s or 60s. The next one here is from Lionsgate as well. It's a movie here called I Can Only Imagine. It stars Dennis Quaid, Trace Adkins, and this is basically, though, about this really well-known song that was like a really popular song, and it's kind of about the person who was behind this song, and it kind of flashes back to, he's basically doing an interview kind of talking about this song, and the woman saying, so how did you come up with this song? And he's like, well, I actually wrote it in only about 10 minutes, and she's like, no, this is something that you wrote over a whole lifetime. So it flashes back to when he's a kid, and, it's kind of about when he's a kid, too. He's got some real problems in his home life because Dennis Quaid, who plays his father, is like a real alcoholic, and that he's always fighting with his mother. And the one time when he goes off to camp, he comes back and the mother is left, and he's stuck back with Dennis Quaid, who's like has all these alcohol problems and is really abusive. And it's essentially, though, all about, though, kind of his life and kind of how it shaped him to write this really, it's, like I said, it's a true story as well, how he wrote this well-known song. And it's essentially just goes through his life and kind of shows how he kind of started and how he started getting into the music industry and kind of how he started in school, too. He started kind of in the theater program, and then it kind of led into music at this glee club. So it's a kind of an interesting character piece all about this guy's life and how it, did this song. And there's some really sad stuff in this movie as well. This has on here, though, a whole lot of features. It has 3 hours of extras on this. It has on here 7 deleted scenes. It has some featurettes talking about the making of this movie, talking about the casting. It has an interview on here with Dennis Quaid. It has an audio commentary. Lionsgate also sent over this pretty cool thing as well, this promo item. And it's actually like a journal for the movie. And it says, I can only imagine. It has like, it's a blank journal that you guys could write into. I don't know, it's just a cool promo piece they sent. It says, on digital June 5th, and then on Blu-ray DVD combo pack June 12th here. And next one here I got from Warner Brothers. They sent over a free copy of this one to let you guys know about. It's the brand new Tomb Raider film, which honestly, I saw this one in theaters, and I really, really like this movie. I like the other two Tomb Raider films, starring Angelina Jolie, but this one has no connection to those. those. This one is a standalone origin film, and I hope they actually do more of these. I thought Alicia Vikander did a really, really good job as Lara Croft in this, and it's essentially, though, it's kind of the origin to Lara Croft when she first goes on her adventure, because, you know, if you guys know the story, Lara Croft's father, who was this adventurer, had gone missing, and she for years had no idea where he was, and the company that you know, he has all this money and runs this really big company. The company is sort of at a standstill because they can't really do anything major change-wise since he's missing, and it's become a certain amount of time where, you know, Lara Croft's character could kind of sign off on things, but she doesn't want to do it, but she reluctantly, like, decides to do this and, like, start to take over the company or kind of hand it over to someone else. But when she does that, she just discovers this clue of where the father is, you know, where he last went. So it's kind of her going to this island trying to hope, you know, with the hopes of tracking down the father, and there's kind of some really weird stuff going on this island, and Walter Goggins' character is there, and there's some crazy stuff. Like I said, it's her first big adventure, and I honestly really, really thought, you know, Alicia Vikander did a great job in this movie. I thought this was a really, really cool, old-school vibe adventure film. This has on here, though, stuff on here, some featurettes talking about the game, bringing the game to the film, you know, for the new generation. It has on here with featurette with Alicia Vikander talking about the training of this film. 4K wise, though, this movie looks great. You know, big thing with 4K, I always have said, is the HDR, which is the high dynamic range, which is the contrast levels, the darker darks, the brighter brights with the color levels. And this is a movie like all set out in the jungle setting, so, you know, really colorful set pieces and everything. Really, really looks great. Really, really fun film. And if you guys like the other Tomb Raider films, would highly recommend you guys check this one out. The next one, Warner Bros. Sent over a free copy of this one as well to let you guys know about. It's a movie here starring Alex Morgan, who's a soccer star, and it's called Alex and Me. This is actually a fun movie. This is basically about this girl who really wants to be, you know, kind of play soccer, and she's kind of like, her father is sort of ignoring her a little bit because, like, the brother is getting, you know, doing, you know, sports as well, and they're all kind of more, you know, emphasis is put on him, and the father's really paying attention to to her brother, and she really wants to, you know, do this. And she has a poster of Alex Morgan on her wall, and it's kind of like her inspiration for soccer. But one day, though, she's like, kind of gets really uninspired because, like, she goes to the, you know, practice for soccer, and the guy is this really, like, mean guy who's running it, and he's taking it way too serious, and he, you know, ends up doesn't let her join the team because she says she doesn't have what it takes. So she gets discouraged and starts ripping things off the wall, and she ends up bumping her head, and then when she wakes up, she sees Alex Morgan in her house talking to her, and Alex Morgan kind of, you know, is helping her try and train and try and put together a team, and it's like sort of about her trying to, you know, put together a team of the other people who didn't make teams to try and, like, you know, kind of win the whole thing and kind of show that, you know, maybe the outcast who are kind of thought that they couldn't be on the team could be on the team and could actually be the winners. And it's sort of essentially that's what it is. There is some weird things when you think about, like, the fact that she's imagining seeing the Alex Morgan character, like when you see Alex Morgan, like, kicking the ball to her, it's kind of like, well, if she wasn't there, how is she kicking the ball? Like, I don't know, something you shouldn't really read into. But honestly, though, this really was a fun, you know, family film. It's more for kids, though, but I thought it was a fun movie, to be totally honest, though. This has on here, though, some outtakes on here. It has some featurettes, too, on the making of it. Like I said, too, Alex Morgan is acting in this one as well, playing herself. The next one here is from Universal, and this is the 4K edition. This is a show that people have told me about to watch for years. I finally saw it. I only ever saw one episode from, like, the most recent season. So I finally was able to start from the beginning and watch this. And this is the 4K edition here. Now, keep in mind, though, this only includes the 4K disc and then the digital copy. It does not include a Blu-ray, so if you guys don't have 4K, don't get this edition. But this is Game of Thrones, the complete first season, and this is, like I said, is the 4K edition of the show. This has on here, though, a whole bunch of different features on here: anatomy of an episode, making of Game of Thrones, creating the show open, commentary tracks, character profiles. And this is basically, though, about the one character who kind of is brought in by the king to kind of be his kind of, like, look over him and help keep him safe and keep his community safe. And it kind of goes around a bunch of different characters as well, and it's sort of like these, I only just started watching it, so it's kind of hard to explain all of it, but it's like I will say, like, when I first heard about this show, I kind of thought it was going to be like a lot of like sword fights and that sort of. I don't know. I kind of had this one view of what I thought it was going to be, and then when I watched it, I'm like, I actually think this is actually a pretty cool show. I always love Emilia Clarke too, and she's in this show. Peter Dinklage is in this show. I don't know. Honestly, though, I don't know how I didn't watch this till now. I'm glad that, I'm starting to with it in 4K. And in the 4K wise, though, I saw like one mixed thing talking about the 4K. But honestly, though, I thought this 4K looked great. Like, totally honest, I thought it looked really, really good because I looked at the Blu-ray too just to try to compare, and there's definitely an improvement to the, the colors, and it's much brighter look to the film, to the show, and everything wise. Definitely, I would say 4K for this one is definitely an upgrade for sure, though. The next one here is from Universal, and this is Pacific Rim Uprising. This is the sequel to Pacific Rim that Guillermo del Toro directed, and I really liked the first film. The first film, though, had like a little bit of a cooler setting, though, and like more of a stylized kind of look. This one, though, kind of reminded me a little bit like of Ender's Game, a little bit like the look, some of it kind of to it a little bit. But this stars the main actor from the new Star Wars films, and he was also in Detroit. Oh, I'm a fan of the stuff he's done. This was honestly okay. It's basically, though, he plays Idris Elba's son, who basically this is 10 years after the events of the first film, and he ended up, it's basically about the people who are in this force of trying to fight the kaiju, the big giant, like, creatures that are in these films that, kind of come back and, try and destroy the earth. And he, was originally in the force of trying to fight them, but then he ended up leaving. But he ends up, getting kind of forced back into it because he gets like arrested with this one girl who created this own kind of, robot creature that fights them. But they end up he basically got kind of roped into having to join the force again and having to actually train these new recruits for, impending doom that these kaiju creatures could come back. And it's a fun movie, though. Like I said, I kind of like the first one a little bit more, though, just because it had more of a stylized kind of look. The fight scenes, though, in here were pretty good, though, of the creatures and everything like that. And it has some, the settings, though, there was some cool settings to this one as well. This has on here, though, deleted scenes with commentary track from the director and a bunch of different features that's on here about becoming cadets, about the villains in here on this one, and includes a digital copy as well. This one here is from Sony. It's a movie here starring Maggie Grace, Mike Epps, Clancy Brown, John Malkovich, Russell Peters, who I've been a fan of recently. He was in a movie called Ripped, which was a really funny movie, and a movie called The Clapper, which I really liked. And this is a movie called SuperCon. And this is basically, though, about a comic convention, and it's Russell Peters' character and this other guy go, and they're basically like yeah, and I didn't realize too. Two of the actors were both together recently in Hurricane Heist. But it's basically, though, they're like kind of like the actors. I think the one guy is like a voice actor. The other guy was on a Russell Peters' character was on like a 80s kind of sitcom show along with Clancy Brown's character. And Clancy Brown's character was always like giving him crap on the show and stuff and giving him all sorts of problems. And they all come together for this convention, and they kind of are the kind of people who do convention circuits all the time, and that's kind of how they make a living. And when they get there, though, Clancy Brown's character is like really successful, and he's charging like $70 an autograph and making all this money. And Russell Peters' character is really like bitter about this, and he's like all this money that he's making, and he's also making fun of him and giving him all kinds of crap in front of the crowd there. So they come up with this idea to try and actually rob from the convention and steal all this money, but not steal the money from the convention itself, but steal all the money that Clancy Brown's character would be bringing in, which would be like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's like basically them trying to plan this heist of stealing the money. It's a fun movie. It's not like perfect all around or anything. There are a lot of like little cameos in here as well. I always like Mike Epps as well. He plays the guy who's like putting on this convention here. This has on here, though, a commentary track on here with the director and filmmakers on this. The next one's here. I'll put a link where you guys can order these ones for the best price. But this is a show that recently got canceled, and it's really a shame because it ended on a major cliffhanger. And it's a show that I really like because there's not, when it comes to like sitcoms and stuff and like shows like this, there's not too many of them that I really follow. But this show I watched every single episode, really got into it. There were some episodes that kind of like would kind of stagger along a little bit. Like it was kind of like, well, if they would have moved it on a little quicker, maybe it wouldn't have ended like it did, because they would have some episodes were kind of like filler, like a couple of them. And if you guys saw the show, you know what I mean. But this is the complete second and third season here of The Last Man on Earth, which, you know, stars Will Forte and Kristen Schaal. I never say her name right, but it's Will Forte. Jessica Jones is in the show. No, January Jones. But this is basically, though, set is like the idea that it's like the last people who are on Earth, and they, in the first season they kind of come together and meet each other, and it's essentially them all trying to figure out where they're going to live. And throughout the show they kind of move places that they go, and then other characters kind of come into play, and they come into little conflicts here and there. But like I said, the thing with the show is they would sometimes have things where they would stall out a little bit in one location. And the thing that I thought was funny, though, was they even knew that happened, and then they would go, okay, let's speed this up, and then they would like all of a sudden go a year, like 8 months later, to kind of get past that hump of where it would like stagger along a little bit. So I kind of liked that they would do that, and they were doing that near the end, because I could tell they were trying to get past certain things. But just as honestly, a really, really fun show. Mary Steenburgen's on the show as well. Just one, I'm really glad that this is, they're releasing this. There's only one, they're released as Burn on Demands, but still I'm glad, because it didn't seem like these were going to get released on, at least the other seasons. Hopefully they release season 4 as well. So if you guys are a fan of this, definitely I would recommend picking these up too, because I feel like it's one of those shows too, since it did get canceled, it might almost kind of be like lost in a few years from now. And the next one I got here is from Cinedigm. It's a movie here called Class Rank, which is directed by Eric Stoltz. He has a quick cameo on this as well. But this is a movie, it's basically though about this kid who is always going to like these school board meetings, and he's like always kind of saying, oh, you should do this and you should change that. I don't like this. He's basically he's never missed a school board meeting. And this one girl, though, at the school that goes to school with him as well, she ends up getting, because they have like a class ranking program where they like rate you of who's the #1 student of this class, and like they give you a rating. And she's like one of those girls who wants to be perfect in school, always has to have an A, wants to go to this like really good school, but she gets a class rank of #2, and it drives her crazy. And she tries to like get rid of this and try and see if she can find a way to be #1, and there's no way. So she goes to the PTA or the school board saying that you should get rid of this class rank, that a lot of other places don't have this anymore, and they say, no, we voted on it, we're keeping that. So she tries to talk this kid who's always going to these meetings to try and talk him into running for the the board, so he can kind of dismantle it. So it's essentially about her trying to help this guy run for the school board, putting up flyers and everything. It's kind of them teaming up together, but it's also about them her sort of starting to like him and stuff, and he's like really oblivious to everything. Bruce Dern plays his grandfather, who he lives with and kind of takes care of, and there's some really, really great scenes with him and Bruce Dern. Bruce Dern was really great in this movie. This honestly was just such a fun movie. I didn't even know that Eric Stoltz directed stuff, because I always thought of him from movies, and like he was in The Butterfly Effect and Masks and stuff, but I didn't know he directed, and he's done a lot of TV and stuff, but he did a really, really good job on this. This was honestly a really, really fun movie, and it has a commentary track on here with Eric Stoltz as well as the director, and there was a bunch of deleted scenes as well on this. The next one here is from E1. It's a movie here called Don't Get Caught, and this movie stars Brian Hooks, and there's a lot of cameos in here, like Mike Epps, Snoop Dogg, Linnell is in this film, E40 acts as one of the stars of this as well. It's, like I said, it's called Don't Get Caught, and it's basically about these two guys who end up stealing this marijuana from this guy who's growing weed out in the middle of nowhere, and they end up going, oh, like we should steal all this and sell it. So they steal this huge amount. They like fill the whole truck with it. But of course, though, the guy who they steal from is this kind of bumbling, foolish guy, and he's like was asleep, and that's how it got stolen. When he wakes up, though, he calls in the people that he works for, and they kind of are on the task of trying to track down who stole it. And Brian Hook's character ended up leaving his wallet there, so they're kind of coming after him, and it's kind of them like selling off all this stuff and getting all this money, but then they're kind of coming after him, and it's like a whole problem. There's all sorts of problems, and like I said, there's lots and lots of cameos. Mike Epps' cameos is like really quick. It's like he just goes in there and grabs like one thing and then leaves. It's like a really funny like random little cameo. Snoop Dogg has a random cameo in this as well, but there really was some funny stuff in this. Brian Hooks, though, I've always been a fan of him. He's been in lots and lots of movies throughout the years. I think one of his bigger films was a movie called Fool's Gold. But really was a fun movie. The next one here is from E1 as well. It's a movie called Astro, and this is a movie that's basically though about this rich like billionaire guy who kind of sends this mission to space, and they end up bringing back this kind of like alien that they bring back, and it's kind of about like the alien like is there's a connection to this alien to someone that like had worked for the government or something like that, and there's like a weird connection to this alien, and it's essentially them trying to get this guy to kind of come back and work for them to help them out because of this alien. And there's some really trippy stuff that's going on with this alien that comes back, and he has a really cool look to it. It's a really super indie film, but they did a really good job as like with being big space sets and everything to this one. If you guys like science fiction-y type films about like aliens and stuff like that, but like more of like a human looking alien coming back that has a connection to a human, like I said, it's kind of hard to explain though, but really was an interesting movie here. The next ones here are Italian releases from the company Midnight Factory, and both of these ones are region free, so there's no region lock. You guys can watch these ones in the US, so there's no region lock to these, and both of these ones don't have Blu-ray releases in the US, so it's really cool that these are on Blu-ray. And this is a movie here called Slumber, and I really like their artwork and how they release them, because inside they have two different images and they have a booklet inside. This one was all about sleep paralysis and like the idea of like what happens when people like when the idea of when people kind of freeze up and can't move and stuff. And so they had a doctor who like studies this, but it's essentially though about this family that's being affected by this one kid who's having these bad dreams. But when the kid dreams though, the parents start doing weird stuff in the sleep as well. Like they start like doing crazy stuff at night, and like they start messing things up in the house. It's essentially though about the woman though who had something weird happen to her as a child as well, going on and trying to study this whole thing. This one, honestly, there was some really creepy stuff going on in this movie. And this one here is Contracted, and this has the Contracted 1 and 2, both of the Contracted films. Contracted 1 has never been released on Blu-ray in the US. Part 2 was okay. I didn't like it as much, but as well, too, this has look like this, and both of them have their own disc. But the first Contracted movie was a really cool movie. I really loved the first film. It's essentially, though, about this really weird guy who's in the beginning of the movie. He's sleeping with a corpse, and he ends up, raping the main girl. It's a really crazy stuff that happens in this, some really bad stuff. But essentially, though, this girl contracts this like sexually transmitted disease from this guy sleeping with his corpse, and it's essentially though weird things start to happen to her. She starts to kind of like changing and rotting, and really odd stuff is going on. It's like a super creepy movie. I really love it. Like I said, the first movie is one of those movies that's like a great film. It's not been released on Blu-ray though in the US, and like I said, both of these are region free, so there's no region lock or anything like that to them. The next one here is from MVD, and this is from their Rewind collection, and I love this line because like on the slipcover they have a thing that says like horror, to look like an old school VHS. It has like special collector's edition Blu-ray DVD, don't be fine, please rewind. This is a movie here called Abominable, and this is one I think I talked about this one years back when this first released on DVD. The thing that's pretty cool about this is though, when this was first released, this was edited to be released just on DVD, so it never was released in HD, or there was never an HD file or anything. So there's a whole thing on here, like 8-minute thing talking about how they went and restored this movie. They had to take the original negative, recut the whole movie, redo everything again, all the effects, the titles, everything, because there never was an HD file of this. So that all the kind of work there was, into this. This is basically about a guy who was in an accident. And the movie kind of has a sort of a rear window kind of vibe a little bit, but with a Bigfoot in it. And he ends up going out on, just kind of stay out in this cabin to try and get his life back together with his nurse. But he's kind of spying on the new neighbors. And he sees, at night, he sees this, like, Bigfoot, he sees eyes, and he sees this one girl getting attacked, and the guy who's his nurse sort of thinks he's crazy when he's telling him about this, and it's essentially about this guy who's in a wheelchair while there's a Bigfoot outside, kind of terrorizing the woods and, like, the girls that moved in next door. It's a really fun movie, and there's all kinds of cameos in here. Who was in this movie? Jeffrey Combs was in this movie. D. Wallace Stone is in the film. Lance Henriksen. And like I said, it has on here, though, outtakes and bloopers. It has commentary track on here with the director. It has the original 2005 version. So if you guys want to watch the version of this one, there was the standard def one. You can see that one as well, because they also did some changes to like Bigfoot's eyes to kind of make him look creepier in this one, stuff they couldn't do when this first released. The next one here is from a company called Giant Pictures, I think. But I'll put a link, though, below, where you guys can order this one. But it's a movie here called They Remain. This is an interesting movie. This is basically about these scientists who go down. It kind of has a sort of a feel kind of like Moon or something like that, because it's like set. It's on Earth, but it's like in this weird wilderness area, and they're kind of staying in something that you would kind of be in, like if you were up in Mars or on the Moon or something. And it's like these scientists are there to kind of study this area, because there's been some weird kind of phenomenons there, and there was a weird cult that was there, and like the cult had killed all these people, and all these people died, but they was believed that there was even more people that died out there. So they're out there kind of studying, and it's like these two people that are out there, and the woman though is becoming sort of obsessed with this area, and they're out there kind of hearing things, and weird things are happening, and they're all kind of blaming each other, saying, you're doing something, and you're making these noise at night, and you were making noise outside the tent at night, and you were doing this, and it's kind of all about cracking up, and they're just sort of out there having all these weird sorts of things happening to them. This is actually a pretty interesting movie. Has on here, though, other information, a short film on here, has a commentary track on here, storyboard, and a stills gallery on this release here. And the next one I got here is from Viavision. It's a TV series here called Blood Drive, the complete series. And this one is an all-region release as well, so there's no region locking or anything like that. And I don't believe there's a U.S. release at all of this on DVD or Blu-ray. This is essentially like a futuristic post-apocalyptic show where it's kind of interesting. There's like a tournament going on. Kind of has like a death race sort of feel a little bit, kind of mixed with Mad Max and that kind of thing. But the cars run on blood, and they like grind up bodies and stuff in the car. But it's essentially, though, about these cops that are kind of trying to track down this ring of what's going on here, and then the whole kind of race, because the person who wins this race ends up getting all this money, and it's kind of the only way to kind of retain any sort of wealth in this world, because like I said, it's a real post-apocalyptic world. Everything's kind of falling apart, and it's essentially, though, following around these group of people who are on this crazy blood race, and it's like some really crazy stuff, and there's some super crazy over-the-top gore and everything on this one. And this is the entire series of the show. It's only ran, I think, for like 13 episodes of this one, but pretty cool, though. This one was released. And the next one here is from Troma, and this is probably one of my favorite things that Troma's released in a long time. This honestly was amazing, and I just have to cover one thing up on this, but it's a movie here called called Rose and Victor No Mercy, and it's basically, though, about these two vigilantes who kind of go and they like see these things on TV that says, oh, we're looking for this person that did this, and this person that robbed this, or this person was kidnapped by this person, and both of them go out, and the guy kind of reminds me a little bit like of a character Bill Moseley would play, and he's like, both of them were great, and she was really good as well, and she actually wrote the movie. But it's basically, though, about them going and kind of killing these people, going after the bad people, and there's like the stuff that they do to people is like really crazy, and it's like super gory, and the chemistry between them, like the way they're acting together, is amazing. It's just like these crazy vignettes. It's like different kind of vignette scenes of them going after targets and kind of them getting revenge on everybody. And like the people they have, like the actors and stuff playing the people they're going after, are great. There were some crazy scenes in this. This has on here, though, behind the scenes, deleted scenes, and some featurettes on the making of this. But I would highly recommend you get this. Like I said, probably one of my favorite Troma releases in a long time. The next one here is from Full Moon, and it's the newest Evil Bong film. This is Evil Bong 777, and this one is basically about the characters now in Vegas, and the one character is stuck in sexy hell and trying to get back, but they can't get back because they have to so they can get to a certain point or something where they can come back. But it's essentially, though, about the characters just in Vegas and going to like the strip club and having all these weird type of encounters in Vegas, and they filmed like a bunch of different random spots in Vegas. But, these movies, though, there's some really crazy stuff in these movies. They're super, super over the top. But I will say, too, one thing that's pretty cool with Full Moon, though, is they just announced they're going to start to release the Moonbeam releases, which were the kid films that they produced in the 90s, which were the things that I grew up watching of theirs, which loved. I think the first one they're going to be releasing is Prehistoria. I always say it wrong, though. But that, they're releasing that one on Blu-ray in the coming coming months, which I think is so cool. They're going to be releasing that. Hopefully they release Remote. That was one of my favorite ones that they released, you know, during the Moonbeam line. But one thing that's pretty cool is this release here of Puppet Master. This is in a VHS style, big box VHS style case. This is the first of this line, and I believe they're going to be doing more from this line, but this one in here includes, so I have to be careful opening this, but it's, like I said, it's in the old school VHS box, and inside it includes the figure of Blade here, the reaction style figure, and then it also includes this, and it's a new edition here of Puppet Masters because it has brand new artwork on this one, and includes the DVD and the Blu-ray of the film. And I think they're going to be doing that coming up for some of their stuff, having the DVD and Blu-ray, because I know the Prehistoria one is going to be like that as well. I think that one, if they did a release like this, would be kind of cool as well in a VHS style box. I don't know, I think these are cool boxes, and it's also signed by Charles Band as well here. And the next one here is from MVD, and it's a movie here called Body of Deceit. This movie stars Christina Loken, and this is basically, though, about this girl who ends up getting into this car accident and kind of forgets like things. She starts kind of losing her memory, and she's sort of trying to recover it and trying to remember exactly what had happened because she can't remember much before, and there seems like some really big gaps in everything that's going on. And she was like trying to, it's like basically she's like ghostwriting this book, but she's having terrible trouble with it, so she ends up deciding to go with her husband to Italy and to try and like see if that will help her, and that's where they used to always go. But when they go back there, they end up meeting this one girl who's going to help kind of watch the place that they're at with them. But it kind of becomes a relationship between them, and it becomes like this whole thing going on. It's all kinds of troubles that are going on. It was kind of an interesting kind of film, all about kind of, you know, what happened to this girl, and kind of like there's some weird behind the scenes kind of stuff. And the last one here, I just have the disc, but this is one of those ones you guys can watch, I believe, off of iTunes. I know there's one other thing that you can watch it on. I'll put a link below, though, where in the description, what things you can see it on. It's a movie here called Inheritance, and it's basically about this, you know, guy who finds out that his father died, but it was his father that he actually never met because he was adopted. So he ends up finding out about it. So he finds out that he inherits this house. But it's this house, though, it's kind of like, when he gets there, there's some weird stuff. There's a woman there who's like automatically really trying to buy it. And like he's starting to sort of realize that there's like weird people kind of hanging around, coming around the house, lurking around. And it's like a house, too, that people like don't want to. There's like people kind of want to be out of this house. So it's essentially, though, him there trying to figure out, but he also wants to try and figure out exactly more about his past and like what he can figure out about it, because he knows really not much at all about his actual past. So it's him there as well, trying to kind of dive into his past, why there's some really weird things going on. This is actually kind of a cool, interesting kind of movie, all about sort of discovering the stuff from your past. But anyway, though, guys, that's all for the review portion of this video. Thanks again for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.